Nick Dunn, you're probably the most hated man in America right now. Did you kill your wife, Nick?
So, I'm a bit late on getting around to seeing Gone Girl, but after finally having the chance to see it with a group of friends, I have to say that I was very impressed. I've often considered David Fincher to be probably one of the most consistent directors that are around today. Obviously, there are films of his that don't quite meet the high standard that we've come to expect of him. Yet, out of all of his projects, I can't say that I've seen an outright bad one, at least a project that I'd consider to be his. David, I love you, but Alien 3 was awful. But this time he's working from the best-selling novel by Gillian Flynn, who also happened to write the screenplay. And look, you give Fincher a solid piece of source material and he can make a masterpiece. Thankfully, Gone Girl continues the trend of those films that we think of when we think of this director's work. The focal point of the movie is the relationship between Ben Affleck, playing the character of Nick, and his fiancée Amy, played by Rosamund Pike. We're introduced to both the characters through the development of their relationship, from what initially appears to be an idyllic marriage, to an affair which grows more toxic and unstable as time progresses. All of this tension leads up to the day of the couple's 5th wedding anniversary. Nick returns home to find his house almost theatrically set up as though a home invasion has taken place, with his wife Amy inexplicably missing. And to be honest, I think that's all I should say about the plot. See, this is the definition of a story-driven movie, and the way in which the story unfolds is part of what makes Gone Girl so riveting. It's told at an excruciatingly slow pace, but I don't by any means regard this as a detriment or a criticism of the film. In fact, I believe that this was a very intentional and very smart choice from the filmmakers. You're supposed to feel the weight of the situation and endure this agonising crawl of a journey, much like the characters do. By the time the film ended, my friends and I just sort of sat there for a moment and realised that, yeah, getting married to someone is a fucking stupid idea. You see, watching Gone Girl is like finding a wallet in quicksand. From the very beginning, you know what you're getting yourself into, but you say to yourself, well, if I make it to the end, I'll get a nice reward. So for 2.5 hours, you forcibly make your way through it. But then the realisation comes when you emerge at the end, only to find the wallet containing a piece of paper with an IOU written on it, forcing you to question all your life choices up to that point.
Everyone told us marriage is hard work. Not for me and Nick.
Going into Gillian's Gone Girl before I saw the film, there seemed to be a recurring theme when I spoke to people who had seen it, or when I heard it mentioned by others who had seen it, and that was that the film supposedly changes halfway through. I have to disagree with this, but not in the manner that you may expect, because I actually think that the film goes through 3 states and not just 2. I felt that all 3 acts of the film were distinctly different, chronologically going from a mystery to a thriller, then to a drama. But from an audience's perspective, this may actually be the biggest hindrance on the film. People going into this with any types of expectations should be prepared to have those expectations shattered. Again, I shan't spoil the plot for you, however the transition from the early portions of the film to the later parts are rather drastic, and they do get into some unexpected and some might say absurd territory. I mean, I personally enjoyed the way in which the narrative played out, but there were a couple of instances where even I was like, okay, so this character is basically omniscient then. Because even though I thoroughly enjoyed this film, there were some notable flaws. I have to say that in the first 15 to 20 minutes I was kind of concerned. There were a few elements which I didn't think worked very well that were really quite prominent early on in the film, and sadly they were actually persistent throughout the rest of it. For one, the character of Nick is great, yet the chemistry between him and the other characters seem kind of forced. I understand that Nick and Amy were the perfect couple, but instead of showing subtler moments of intimacy between them, it opts for moments which I found to be a bit cliché. I'm not sure why, but it felt as though they found it difficult to establish a realistic chemistry when characters first meet. It also doesn't help that every now and again there would be a line of dialogue that no one would say unless they were in a thriller novel. Gillian. The other aspect which I found really distracting was the editing. They decided to go for something which was aesthetically different. I got that it was a stylistic choice, and I think I understood what they were going for, but to me it just felt a little intrusive. Thankfully, the second and third acts greatly improve and they better the overall quality of the film. There's great attention to detail in the scenes, and it's just a treat to see this meticulous a director have such a commanding presence throughout his work. The cinematography I thought complemented the tone of the film almost perfectly. Each scene feels important due to the film's pristine look. Shot in 6K, every portion of the screen feels as though it carries some significance, like you are supposed to be analysing the area much like how the characters are. The look of the film was great, and Fincher put just enough green in there in case you forgot who made it. Seriously, that guy loves green. So, as you'd expect on a technical aspect, everything is very calculated, mannered, and it functions like a well-oiled machine. And I haven't even mentioned the score yet, which is pretty darn good. Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross returned to collaborate once again as they did on The Social Network. And I'll go on record by saying that Trent Reznor is a genius, and I love him, and he's brilliant, and I love him. In fact, the brief that Ross and Reznor received was based on a visit that David Fincher paid to a massage parlour. The music that was played was supposed to be soothing, but instead he found it very unsettling. That was the tone that they were aiming for, and the whole soundtrack, which is currently being played in the background, has this sense of menacing anticipation to it, a tone that's present throughout the rest of the film. Now, I know that so far I've mostly spoken about the technical aspects, however, possibly my favourite element of the film was in fact the acting. As we all know, Ben Affleck has come to be known as someone who turned their career around over the past couple of years, and he does a great job of selling the character of Nick. I think if Ben Affleck didn't make this character believable, then the film wouldn't work, but he manages to portray it in a very convincing way where I found my empathy towards him being redirected constantly. I don't think there was a bad performance throughout the entire film. Even the supporting cast were great. I mean, Fincher is pretty versatile with the actors that he uses, and considering how often he pulls great performances from unexpected people, I think that's a testament to how well he does his job. There's Neil Patrick Harris outside of his comfort zone, who manages to pull off a terrific creepy performance. Even Tyler Perry's good in this. And yes, Tyler Perry does play a crucial role in this film. The same Tyler Perry who didn't know David Fincher going into this film. The same Tyler Perry who said if he knew David Fincher's work, he wouldn't have accepted the role. Tyler Perry, the filmmaker who is supposed to have decent knowledge of the industry he works in, yet doesn't know one of the most popular directors around. I guess that's just what makes him the auteur he is.
Or as Medea would say, hallelujah!
Yet the best performance is easily Rosamund Pike, and holy shit if this doesn't show the acting chops that this girl has. Like the rest of the characters, Amy is complex, interesting, and fantastic to watch, but Pike really delivered a performance for a character that wouldn't be that easy to play, and I'd be very surprised if she doesn't get an Oscar nod for this. In terms of repeat viewings for Gone Girl, I'd definitely watch it again due to the complexity of its characters. However, when it comes to what the film is trying to say, I think most people are going to understand it all on their first viewing. There's a lot to be said about the media frenzy regarding public interest stories, as well as the fickle nature of the public when any sort of information gets revealed, but I don't think the film really has too much to say about it. It just sort of puts it out there and says, yep, this is a thing that happens. The film seems to be more about perception and how a marriage can survive when two people are so often in the public eye. Nick through the media and Amy through her parents' novels. One thing that the film does really well is that it shows that there are no absolute moralities in these people. Ben Affleck's character sums it up perfectly when during an interview he says, "That doesn't mean I'm a good guy." And when you think about it, most of the people in David Fincher's films aren't very good. In fact, hardly any of them are. Maybe he just doesn't like people.
I think people are perverts. I've maintained that. That's the foundation of my career.
Overall, I think Gone Girl is a terrific film, especially as it had the potential to have been handled really poorly. I mentioned that early on in the film, there were moments that made it feel like a made-for-TV movie, and when you take into consideration the actual content, this entire film could have been handled with nowhere near as much respect as the cast and crew did here. Gillian Flynn has done a great job of penning an intense screenplay which doesn't go overboard with how indulgent it is. Even though there were a handful of moments where I had to suspend my disbelief, the overall quality of the film was fantastic. I'd be lying if I said that I wasn't utterly engrossed in what was happening, and I had an investment into what was going to happen. The movie's 2.5 hours long, and honestly, I would have been fine if it was longer. And if my praises haven't convinced you to see this movie, then allow me to squash the rumours and confirm that yes, you do in fact get to see Ben Affleck's penis in this film. It's on screen in all its majesty, and you only have a short time frame to see it, but trust me, it's there. I saw it. And if you are struggling to find it, the kind people of the internet are more than happy to help. Gone Girl gets an 8 out of 10.
You ever hear the expression, simplest answer is often the correct one?
Actually, I've never found that to be true.